Hi, my name is Shelby. I'm going to calligraph the word February on cardstock with a Speedball C-0 pen and gouache. Then I'll outline the word February and add some flowers at the end. As I'm lettering, I'm going to be filling the reservoir of the Speedball pen with different colors of gouache, and you can see that I've filled the pen for the first time with one shade of gouache and was testing out what the beginning stroke would be like. I'll come up and partially finish a letter, then go back in and behind the original color layer in another color so that when I return to the letter, a different color of gouache will flow out of the pen tip. The thing here is to get about the right amount of gouache, otherwise you're going to get on an entrance and exit stroke not a very clean or pleasing stroke. As I begin to letter with the capital F, I can feel the slickness of this cardstock, which is very different than something like an Arches text wove, which is more absorbent. Here the sizing on the cardstock almost resists the gouache, and the gouache just sits right on top of the paper, and you can see where sometimes the color is being resisted by the paper. So I come back in and clean up the letter a little bit. Here I'm pushing that final stroke of the B forward and trying not to have the pen tip splatter. As I make the R, I'm coming above the waistline and pulling that stroke up far because of the R and U combination. It feels like a better spacing in order to have that R come up above the U. I'll do the same on the second R when it's combined with the Y. There's some different colors, as you can see, where a different color of gouache has been loaded. And here I come up again above the waistline and thicken up that stem of the R. Sometimes on this cardstock with that resistive, I find myself scrubbing the paper a little bit with the pen in order to get the ink to come out, and even, you can see even there, and then there's a lot of pressure on the pen nib to get the color to flow. But there you have the word February in some varied colors of pink. Next I'm going to outline the letter February, and I'll be using neon green gouache. The original lettering is dry so that I can lay my hand over the top of it. I'm lettering on the outside of the strokes of the letters and sort of keeping in mind what that outside stroke is. Whoops, I dropped a little bit of extra color on top of the gouache, so I came back in and just dabbed that up, and we'll fix that later. I'm leaving some space between the green outline and the pink gouache, so there's that almost 3 different lines for each letter: the green, the brown that's left open, and then the pink stroke. Rather than going over the top of the exit stroke of that U, I break up the neon green stroke into 2. I'm outlining the outside of the Y. Again, it's the outside of the stroke, not necessarily the outside of the letter. Coming around that Y and turning the paper to get the line steady. I realize there are a few that I missed the outside stroke, so going back in and touching those up. And you can see the word February, and that I did have guidelines, and I was working at a little bit wider than the original, the 5 pen widths, because the Speedball C-0 was a little bit splayed and it felt tight with just 5 pen widths, so I went ahead and used 5.5. And here I'm using a very tiny brush to clean up the green ink or the green gouache that got dropped where I didn't want it. Okay, I'm adding very stylized flowers for decoration. I can very much feel the texture of the paper with this pointed pen. It feels a little bumpy and a bit hard to control. And as an example of that, you can see where it's bumpy there as I'm trying to make that other flower, and there was quite a bit of color that dropped down, so I went in with a piece of absorbent paper towel, soaked up the extra gouache that I didn't want to have that much laying on the paper. I put in some flowers and putting in some decorative strokes, very non-scientific looking decorations, just something to balance out the flower, and adding in some extra color to make the leaves have some visual interest and some variation. And there you have the word February in pink gouache outlined in neon green on chocolate colored paper with flowers on